Hello, today I will be talking about Chapter 12 of the Rhetorical Act and Chapter 7 paired readings of reading pop culture. In Chapter 12 of the Rhetorical Act, one of the main things that they talk about today is visual representation and how it could be persuasive and influence people. So, there's visual clutter every day around us. We see them in billboards and videos and images on social media platforms such as Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. They're everywhere. We can't escape it. And it's a dominant form of persuasion. As to say, for example, say you're reading an information, a passage, and you get the information, you start understanding it, but then they also carry a visual with them. The visual helps give a different meaning to the text that you were once presented with. It helps either deeper analyze, like connect both of them together and see like, oh, this is what they were trying to explain, or this is what they were trying to show. So it's a form of saying like it helps a person understand it, but also helps persuade them even more it helps persuade what the audience thought of it to a new idea. And though there's a bunch of descriptive analysis, there can be problems because sometimes an image or an illustration or any type of media can be too graphic for a person, or it can make a person think something that's hard hitting to them emotional wise. But the thing is as well, images, all this type of visual clutter media, it's enjoyed voluntarily. You don't have to watch it. You're not forced to sit down like you can only watch this. No, we choose to watch it. We choose to look at the images. We choose to analyze. We're not forced and set down by other people saying. And that's one thing about the rhetorical act is trying to explain, that if you're really gonna take a time to look at an image, you have to make sure, just as you analyze text, just as you analyze any type of passage, you need to do the same thing with this, because images and illustrations could be as or even more manipulative than text actually is. And that relates to the paired readings in chapter 7, especially one example in Gerard Jones's Violent Media is Good for Kids. Jones starts off explaining their own examples, how they used to be a secluded kid. They didn't want to talk with anybody. They always kept to themselves. But when they started being shown comics, or when they started to read the whole comics, they felt as their self confidence boosted up. They Through the images, through the illustrations in the comics itself, um, they got to see their thoughts that were pondered away deep inside the mind, expressed through there, and that helps them avoid what they can and can't do. They're allowing these images not influence how they are, but influence them to step away from that and to be a bigger person, to be a better person. And it did allow Joneses to finally express themselves. And as they grew up, they not only saw it in themselves, but in other people, in their own kids. It was researched. So they help people come out of a shell, in a way. These images that were shown, they persuaded people to like open up, to become another person, or to become a better person for themselves. And what goes on is that people are saying that, oh, but it's depicting violent media, it's going to persuade kids to become more violent. That's not exactly the case. That's not exactly the case. Not everything that's portrayed in comics kids are going to want to do. They're going to see it and they're going to notice what's good and bad. Because if you look deeply into comics, they have some morality to it. There's good and there's bad. And there's no violent in pop culture media. People will become too passive. They're not going to be able to recognize the good and the bad. And then in Michael Chabon's article, Secret Skin, an essay on unitard theory, it talks about how the images and the designs of the clothing in the comics itself helped inspire kids to know who a hero is or who a hero can be. Because comics themselves, they show dual personalities in their superheroes. Like, they're not just one person, they're living two lives. And it shows like, oh, if they can do that, I could do some way. Like, they set up a tone for bravery. Like, it's not really saying kids like you can do this because this person's doing it. No, it's showing them, oh, this is an example of what humanity can be, but you can choose what is brave, what is a hero you want to look up to. So in a way, the kids in a way are good judges, or can judge really well when it comes to looking at images and illustrations and see how it changes them to the person they are in the future. And that's one something that we should always look into, that just as kids do it so easily with comics or other things they're exposed to, we should do with everything else. We should do it when we see billboards that are talking about different messages, when we're looking at articles that have photographs aligned to the topic itself. We should know when to analyze what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong.